Hello and welcome to another Beard Clubber video. This video is for the build for the Tabletop Crafters United Challenge for this couple of months, which is May and June. And it's just at the beginning of June. I've left it the entire month of May, not done anything, and I think I'm going to crack on now. What I'm going to do, what the challenge is to make something better. Basically take something you've done before and improve it. And I've got a build which I started for the Encounter Terrain Challenge, the 10 by 10 in December, which was actually a 20 by 20, where I began a build that was 4 separate 10 by 10 dioramas, and I really loved the concept. And I've had it in a box ever since. I didn't finish it because I was waiting for miniatures, which took months to arrive. I mean, literally months. It was crazy, but they did arrive. And it's been months since they arrived, and it's just been sat on the top shelf in my not finished projects, and I'm gonna finish it, and that's how I'm gonna improve it. I'm gonna improve the project. So we do enter this partway through the build. This build has been referenced in a previous video. If you check that out on the Encounter Terrain Challenges playlist, you'll see it there for December. So we'll do start in the middle, and hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks I'm going to get this completely finished, and I can put it on the shelf and look at it and be very happy to see it. So let's have a look and see what I've got, and see how well we can finish this project off. So here we have it, the box which contains the beginnings of the project I did for the Encounter 10 by 10 in December. Long-term viewers will recognise it. Here's a running track, there's the bleachers. We have a explosion. Can't really see it in the daylight, but it does flicker. And here is where the explosion will go with a shell hole. Here we have a what will be I think this is going to be the so people are marching, so people on a parade, and then this very basic bit is going to be the burial ground. So what we have is some razor wire which came in from World War Scenics, whatever. We have some Pricer miniatures and Knock miniatures, which are basically, here's some kids. So this is going to be for the for the running track, and so is this, and so is this. So these are the people watching, but we also have the funeral here. And in this box I have some things which I probably need. So I've got some World War II German minefield warning signs, which is what it's going to be. That is for another project. And then we have men running across a battlefield, men saluting, so this will be used for the parade. We have people in a boat, that's for a different project. I did order some shell holes, but I did my own, so I won't be using them these, but that'll be good for a different project. I've got a bunch of people on parade. What I do have in here are holly wreaths, which is going to be good for the for the funeral scene. And here, this is the one thing that I really wanted. I have the pallbearers for a military funeral. So yeah, we've got some quite cool bits of kit here to make use of, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at pulling this all together and getting this finished, like I say, for the challenge. And I have learned a lot since December. I mean, it's 6 months since I was building this. I'm not going to throw anything away, because what I want to do is take this and improve it. So these bleachers are rubbish. They were rubbish at the time. I was under pressure at the time, and I reckon I can make them a lot better. I can toughen up the base. You can see it's been chipped, even though it's just been sitting in a box. That's not very good. So I'll be toughening up the sort of side. So there are various things I can do which are going to be improvements, but mostly it's just going to be improved by being finished. I mean, how much more of an improvement can you get? So I will sort myself out, work out my plan of attack, and bring it along for the next step when I get to it. So I think the first thing that I'm going to look at on this is finishing off the running track. and I'm going to focus on the bleachers and getting a better texture and a slightly better finish on the running track. And it is a very basic build. This is very simple. It's frustrating to not finish it the first time round. So what I've got to do first is snip off the ends of these. I'm not going to remove them, like I've said, because I want to improve this. I want to learn. But this is going to be quite noisy, so I'll get these snips done, not on camera, and then bring you back to show you the next step. So with that now clipped, what I'm going to do is come along with the same colour paint as I used before, but I'm going to apply it with a stippling effect with a hard bristle brush. This is a brush which I've treated badly, and I've allowed it to get to not be clean properly. Basically, that's what's happened. But don't throw those sorts of things away, because often you'll find that having a brush like that can be useful, particularly in a case like this where you want to stipple on something on a very hard surface. And what you can see is we're just getting a lot nicer texture than I had previously. It was way too smooth before, and it's going to look like the kind of like gravelly red that you get on playing tracks and at schools. So I'll get that done, and then I'll let that dry, I think, and I'll pick the next step up once it's dried. It won't take very long. This stuff dries very quickly, this paint, but I don't want to have any kind of damage going across the build. So yeah, so I'll get that texture in there, and I'll bring you back when I get to the next step. The stippling worked really, really well. I'm very, very pleased now with the texture on that. So what I'm going to do is I've got my Winsor & Newton raw umber, which is what I use for this sort of thing, and I'm just going to come along and paint that on as a base colour. Now I'm going to come along after this and dry brush it, because I don't want it to be this dark really, not when it's finished, but I do want to have a nice solid base underneath it. So I'm going to do this as the first stage. It's a bit noisy, so I'll do it off camera, and then when that's done, we'll do a dry brush, and then we're going to start working on the grass. So that's dried nicely, and what I've got now is a paint called Cafe Latte. And I'm not so much dry brushing as just trying to do like a filter type application on it, using this stiff bristle brush just to lighten it up a little bit. Don't want to go too far, don't want to lose the character I've put in with the dark, but I do want to lighten it so that it's a little bit standing out from the brown underneath of the soil. In retrospect, what I probably should have done is the soil a different colour, but it's too late for that now, as I don't want to start this again. I want to make what I started better, that's the idea. So yeah, so I'm just going to do that, nearly finished, and when that's done, then what we'll do is we'll start to look at the grass and finishing off the detailing, and then on to the next step. Now the other thing to say is, while I've been working on this, I have opened up and washed and started to prepare all of the metal miniatures that are going to go onto this build. So I'll be priming and painting those off camera, just doing a very basic paint job, so there's no point in filming it, but that's ongoing as well. Right, let's get this done, and I'll bring you back in a bit for the grass. In true beard clipper fashion, I'm about to use this device for the very first time. I have literally put a battery in it, turned it on, made sure the light comes on, and now we're going to give it a go. So this is a Pro Grass box from Warworld Scenics, so the same company that makes my normal static grass applicator. And the idea for this one is that you put the static grass on the plate here, and then hold what you want to above it, and it draws it up, which is pretty cool. Now it's designed to be used for things like this, and I'm going to use it for things like this. So for this miniature here, so it's designed to be used for putting static grass, on a miniature where you may not be able to get a more traditional static grass applicator in. However, for this, I'm going to use it for the grass around here, and probably on the grass on any other ones that I do as well, which I might get stuck into. So I've painted on some of the glue, and it comes with a little pot of glue, which is nice. It also comes with a little pot of static grass, or baggie of static grass, and what it says to do is to put some static grass on the plate. Sorry, my hand's in the way. I am right-handed. There we are. So put some static grass on the plate. You attach the clip to your base. Now I'm going to do my thing that I always do. I've got a dressmaker's pin, which means that I can stick that in. So we can stick the dressmaker's pin into the base, which will act as the ground, like so. And then we'll turn it on. Let's see what happens. It's in a big box because I've heard that this is very messy. So let's see. Oh. Wow, would you look at that? It's working. There we are. Right, I might need to move the pin, and also might stop filming very shortly because it's a bit difficult to do, but that is working so much better than the other studded grass applicator would in this situation. Right, I'm going to stop filming, I'm going to finish this off, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. It really is amazing what the application of a bit of grass can do to how a diorama or a piece looks. Really is informative. It's like dry brushing almost. So what we're going to do now is we're going to draw on very carefully, hopefully not screw it up, the lines for the race. And what I'm doing here is just using normal house paint and a toothpick to do the drawing. And I'm going to draw in only a couple of lanes like this. It doesn't need to be multiple lanes because I'm only going to have a couple of runners who are going to be obviously winning the race. This should have had a bit more of a shake on this paint. This is just common house paint that I've got from a local hardware store, and as you can see it draws in those kind of like chalky lines very nicely when you're using a toothpick. So when this is done, what I'll do is I have a couple of miniatures to stick on, and then this piece is done and we can move on to the next, which is really cool. It's really nice to see this coming together. Oops, that was rubbish. I can touch that up. Just fell down off of a ridge that there is that you couldn't see very well. So there we are, so we've got 3 lanes. So the next thing to do, as I say, is to put on the 2 of the runners. I'm going to have 2 runners. I've got this girl here who is going to be at the front, and I've got this boy here who is going to be a little bit further behind. You couldn't really see that because of where the angle is. So I'm just going to glue those on using super glue. The other things that I've got here are, these are the models that did arrive in time last time, but I still couldn't use them. I've got a couple of school teachers and I've got some kids in uniforms, so I'm going to put a couple of those on. And then I've got a couple that can, of adults that will be able to go on the bleachers as well. So a guy there probably is one that's going to be going on who is cheering on the runners, and one person there who has binoculars. So I think I'll probably put those 2 on. I'll probably put a couple of the kids on, and I'll put these 2 of the runners on. And I'll just glue them down using super glue. So I'll put the first couple on, and then the rest I'll do off camera because it's probably not all that easy to see. But yeah, it's really simple to do these. These are dioramas. This is not a technique you'd use if it was going to go onto a gaming top, because obviously they're not going to be all that strong, but they're definitely going to be enough for a diorama. So you can see how simple it is with super glue. So I'll get the rest of them stuck on, I'll show you what it looks like, and then we'll get cracking on with the next cube. Well, this is dried completely now and is finished for now. I may add some more details, but I'm not going to be working on this actively anymore. Very pleased. This is basically what I had in mind. What you can see here is the little girl's winning the race. And the little boy's got his head in his hands coming up behind. Here we've got the school teacher who's watching the finish line, which I did add in as well because I realised I'd missed that in the previous painting video. And then what we've got is we've got a little boy here who's not very happy. We've got 2 girls that are celebrating, because you've got to have a little bit of humour and story in your tales, haven't you? And then at the back we've got the parents, one with binoculars watching because they're still a fair way away, and then a younger sibling potentially cheering on cheering on their family member. So yeah, really pleased with that. It's come out right. What I'm going to do now is carry on with the others. I'll use the same technique for the grass, so I won't film that again. But the next two to do are the parade ground and the charge across the battlefield. So they'll be done together. I last night primed up the miniatures for those two, which were the ones that delayed the whole build in the first place, and I found some miscasts, which after waiting that many months for them to arrive, I'm really not very impressed. So that just piles insult onto injury, I think, for that order. I would never recommend that you go to that guy. It's been a disaster from beginning to end, but which is a shame. Most of the time all the suppliers I use are superb. So anyway, really pleased with how that looks, very happy indeed, and on to the next 3/4 of the build. Last couple of nights I've been painting up very basically these miniatures, which are the figures for the parade and the saluting guy. So we've got like a sergeant major type, like a senior officer dude, and then we've got one guy somewhere who is actually saluting, so the story is going to be able to tell itself. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to build a little platform which is going to go here on the grass, and that's going to have the sergeant major guy stood on it, and then I'll have the saluting guy at the front, and then I'll have ranks of the other soldiers stood behind like that. So first thing to do is going to be to make the platform, and I'm going to make that out of split bits of coffee stirrer. So I will get that ready and then show you how I'm going to assemble it. It's going to be a very simple job. Anything that's left over that I don't use of these figures will be able to go by the graveside, so that's going to be really useful as well. I've had a bit of a think, and I think that rather than attempting to scratch build this platform, I'm going to make use of this offcut of balsa that I've saved from my previous project, because I'm tight, so I have a bag full of balsa offcuts. But tight is good, because it means that rather than spending quite a lot of time constructing it from scratch, there I have my little platform which he's going to be able to sit on. And I am that tight that I've got a little tray which has lots of offcuts of toothpicks, which has been seen before in my build for the gas stands, because I use these to do spikes on the cars. And what I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to be able to use the bradawl to dip a little hole into the grass, put these, and then these spikes will be able to be glued to the bottom of the platform, and just raise it very slightly above the grass, and that will look really well. So I'm probably going to stain this, and I'm probably going to stain this using the wood stain, but the problem with that is it will probably warp, so I think I'll stain it once it's in place, because then it will be secure. So the first thing to do is going to be to stick one of these little kind of points from the end of a cocktail stick onto each corner, and maybe in the middle as well. I might put 6 in. Work out where they're going to be stuck in, use a bradawl and glue it in place. So when I'm coming to glue, I will show you what that looks like. So this is now nicely secured in place, and I've actually not bothered to glue it because I didn't need to. Oh, knock it there. So what I'm going to do now is make use of my raw umber and just take a little bit onto a brush and brush it across, just to darken it up slightly, but I don't want it to be too dark. I decided against using a wood stain, mainly because of the warping, and also just because actually I think I prefer that look. So look a little bit kind of like, you know, temporary or dirty or whatever. Let me zoom in a little bit more so you can see the effect I've got. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clip the miniatures that I want to put onto this off of their pudding bases and glue them in place. So as I mentioned yesterday, I have my Sergeant Major here, who has his little kind of stick, whatever, and he's going to be stood up here. This guy here, who hasn't got an arm, is actually going to go onto the final diorama piece. And then I have one guy who is saluting, who is going to go at the front, and then all the others will be in ranks behind. So I'll get those clipped off, glued in place, and then bring it to show you, and then that will be basically this done. Though I am starting to think that maybe it needs a flagstaff, but we shall see. And so we come to the third bit of this diorama. This is the explosions. So I'm going to place the figures on this now, because then I can do any composition of other things around them, and I think that's going to be the right way to do it. So once again, using super glue, which is a good option for this, particularly because this is not going to be a gaming piece. I'm just going to place one figure here, one here, and one there. running around the explosion. So I might need to use some activator, or I might put some baking soda on. But it should go off very quickly. So I'll get that done. I won't film it all. Me holding a miniature isn't very exciting. And I'll bring you back and show what it looks like when it's finished. And there we are. So let that go off properly. And then I'll dress it with some other details. I'm not entirely sure what. I'm thinking maybe just some detritus, like a wheel or whatever. Maybe not going to put any dead bodies on there. Just don't want to. But maybe I'll do some like wheels, or some wood and some metal, twisted metal that they're running past. But for now, I think that really is a very nice little vignette. And even if I didn't add anything, I think it'd be fine. But I do think it does need just a little bit more scatter going on. I don't want to distract from them. I want it to be very focused just on the people and the explosion. But yeah, just a couple of bits and pieces maybe, and then that'll be finished. So for the past few days, week or so, I've been painting these up very slowly because I've been so busy. Finally, I've managed to get the pallbearers with the coffin and the kind of like major or whatever guys saluting, and a few more of these guys to stand and watch. I also am going to make use of some of these pricer figures. I'm probably going to have this one here, I think. So the two next to each other, and they're going to be the civilians. So it's going to be mostly the military and the civilians. Now this is my square, and what I need to do, if I can get that in shot, let me just move these out of the way. What I need to do is I need to actually have the grave dug. So there's going to be a grave dug in this corner. The pallbearer is going to be coming on here. The military are going to be saluting here, and the civilians are going to be over here. So that's the plan. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is actually literally dig a hole, and then I'm going to need to cover this with grout or something to make it hard. And I think I will do grout, to be honest, rather than modelling compound, because I want it to be flat. I don't want to build any texture at all into it, any contours even, I mean. So I'm going to need to do some grout on top of it, which I will do, and then we can start to place the figures and do the actual scenicking. Now this is bobbly foam, so this is going to be a bit messy doing this, but it'll be fine once I've grouted it. So there we are. So we've dug a nice big hole. That's a good size for a grave, and I will put that in the bin, get some grout, mix it up, and then show you what that looks like when it's done. There is a link in the video below, description below, if you want to see how I make my grout. So once that's done and dried, then we'll come and do the next step. This is dried really nicely. I've done 2 applications, and I'm really pleased with how it looks. So pleased that I'm actually not going to apply grass all over it. So what I'm going to do is we're going to have it a little bit patchy, because I want some of that to come through still. I didn't mean to put that there. And we're going to have a dirt track coming in towards the grave. So that's where they're going to be walking along, carrying. And it's just going to be a bit patchy around it. And I'm not going to be using the static grass this time. I'm just going to use the shop bought flock just to give it that colour. And then once this is done, then we can position our characters, and then we can call this done, which is a superbly exciting moment. So this is the flock that I've got, bought in Belgium when I first started doing terrain all those years back. So yeah, just scatter that on. I'm doing a single colour of flock. I'm not doing my usual multiple flocking. This is because I want this to be a little bit kind of dreamy and not quite as, you know, this is an allegory, not terrain. So yeah, so we're just going to scatter that nicely, evenly over it all, dropping straight back down into the pot so we don't lose anything. Let that shake off, and then what I'll do is when that's dry, I will come back and put some more of my glue over the top to seal it, and then we'll look at sticking in place the different little figures. Now we come to the final part of this build, and I'm going to position the figures on the on this little base. So we're going to have the saluting dude stood off to one side, and we're going to have the other army people lined up here, like I've said. We're going to have one civilian stood here, and what I've done is I've got one of these trees that came free with a tractor for Rosie's Model Railway, and I'm going to put that over here in this corner just to give a little bit of height and to finish the scene off. So I'm going to do that off camera because I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to position things, and it might take a bit of kind of like fiddling and what have you, but I'll bring you back when it's finished, which should be not very long in my time even. I want to finish this today, so yeah, let's get this positioned and I'll bring you back very shortly. I really wanted to have a flagpole on this part of the diorama, so I'm undecided at the moment as to whether I'm actually going to add some wires or whatever to act as the tensioning that you would have. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to use this here, if I can find the hole I just made. There it is. I'm going to use this little bit of plastic card or plastic to make it. That's just going to be the flagpole. Now I'm not going to put a flag on it. Might actually even trim it a little bit more at an angle to make it clear that it's been cut off. But I think that really is the final touch on that section as well. And here we are, all pieces together. It's a bit difficult to see from this angle, but what we've got is we've got the kid running a race at school, then passing out in the army, and then charging into battle, and then finally being carried to his grave for honour or glory, or honour and glory. Let me turn that around a little bit so you can see a little bit better there. What I'll do is, I'll just rearrange that now so that it's in the step down, which is a little bit easier to see. Obviously it's designed, I don't know if it's obvious, but it's designed to have the poppy in the middle. So you've got the running track, you've got the parade ground, you've got the explosion, and then you've got the grave. And that's making it a poppy when you look at it from top down. So I'll rearrange that so you can see it from on the step down way, and that might be a bit easier to see each individual element. So there you are, that's all 4 sections, and that's how it's designed to be displayed. But yeah, the idea is that you have that poppy in the centre on the top. So I'm really pleased to have finished it. I started this aiming to enter it in the December edition of the 10x10 challenge, and obviously now it is June, end of June, beginning of July. I don't even know what date it is, but it's late, yeah, it's taken that long to get here, but I've done it now, and I'm really pleased with the outcome. That just looks superb. So yeah, there we are. It just goes to show, don't ever throw things away, just chip away at it, and eventually you will actually get it finished. And yeah, it's exactly how I imagined it, so very pleased. What an absolutely wonderful project that was, and it's so good to have finished it. And you can see that I've got this here now on my shelf on display at the top, the Encounter 10x10s, and this, which was originally, as I say, started as a 10x10 challenge, is now sat there, and I see it every time I come through the lounge, which is really cool. So thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate that, and do leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. I do reply to all of them. If there's anything that you want to know about this build or the inspiration for it, then do ask away. I'd be very happy to explain. But other than that, I will wrap up by saying thank you very much for watching, and as always, please stay safe, stay healthy, and stay well.